Okay, so this second presentation on the spirit of teams is pretty important because what I want to talk about is the 18 qualities of high performing teams. Now, I actually use these 18 qualities as a template for assessing the spirit of the team, one particular team that I was working in. So, with the 18 qualities, I asked them to rank asked the team members to rank how they felt we were on a scale of 1 to 10. So if we're all in this together was one of the qualities, they would say 0 is no, we're not, and 10, 100% yes, we are. And by gathering that feedback from the people in the team, I got a good sense of where we were, where we needed to improve, and where our strengths were. So I'll go through the 18 qualities, but the first quote is just to set the scene on what a really true high-performing team looks like and where that spirit leads to. The combination was powerful. The leadership of the management team was continually focused on high performance and the players responded positively to the challenging culture. The culture moved away from directive team management towards partnership agreements. So what we're looking for as coaches, and ultimately, if you go back to right to the very start, the first presentation in Module 1 was about that pyramid, if you remember. We had culture at the bottom, identity, higher purpose, and it led all the way to player-led ownership, which is ultimately what this quote is saying. So we're not, as leaders, trying to create an environment that we are sat on top telling people what to do. It's a partnership agreement, and by the senior management focusing on high performance, the players will respond positively to change and to the challenge, and the culture moves away from that directive to partnership agreements. And in your mind's eye, if this was someone who worked for your team, this is the type of quote you'd like to see, I think, if they were asked about their contribution or their part in your team. I was encouraged, allowed to play the way I most enjoyed and which could offer most to the team. We were an incredibly strong team without losing the individual talents of each player. So we're not trying to create clones of one another. We want individual personality within the team, but ultimately we're all there for the team. So here are the 18 qualities. And again, have a think about that exercise in scoring this on 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 and asking everyone who works in your team to see where you're at, and then ultimately you'll get a good benchmark to see where your team spirit is. So what makes great teams? Number 1, high quality coaching and support. We can substitute the word coaching with leadership, but it's absolutely prerequisite. You cannot get great team spirit with poor leadership and support. Hence number 2, good leadership. So, you as the leader can create a strong team spirit even in a team that's losing games or in a difficult environment at work because of your ability to pull people together and work for the team. So you need to generate mutual trust and respect. Obviously, if you give trust, you get trust back. And you 100% need to treat people with respect, because if you do, then you will be respected back. And I think that will work under any circumstances, good or bad, in terms of results and performance. We need to encourage people in teams. If we're looking at the best teams, there is a positive can-do attitude rather than what people looking to see what you can't do, and you are encouraging people to stretch themselves and be the best they can be. And with that, you've got to allow risks. And if I give you the example in a rugby analogy, so this would be like me saying to the players, listen, I want you to try and keep the ball alive in the game and be prepared to take a risk and offload the ball in order to try and create a try-scoring opportunity. And then the worst thing I could do as a coach then, if someone did try that and then the ball fell on the floor, is then, obviously tell them off for a poor execution or poor decision-making or whatever. So we have to allow risks, but ultimately we then can't criticise them if the risk that they take doesn't come off. Which brings me on to the next part, which is no blame. So when you're conducting reviews of games in a sporting context, it's very important the language that you use when you stood in front of people. And often, if there is things that can be done better, the first thing I would always say is, listen, these are the things I could have done better, and reflect on 2 or 3 things and share them with the group. However, I think we could all learn to improve from this particular defeat or whatever it was. And this isn't to apportion blame to anyone, it's just to learn the lessons and make us better as a group. And there's a big difference between saying that and saying, what were you doing and why did you do it? In any team, competition has to be positive. So in a sporting context, everyone's competing to be in the starting team, and we encourage that competition, but that competition has to be for the good of the team, not for the good of the individual. And if someone is picked in the team and the replacement doesn't get an opportunity, we expect him to, or her to, shake the hand of the person that has been picked and say, well done, congratulations, I've got your back. Creating common goals is critical. Again, within a sporting context, we create a higher goal. I think we talked about that right at the start of the leadership club. But also little goals along the way. We've just finished a block of games, 4 games, and I set a goal there, set a goal for different competitions, constantly setting stretch goals so people have something to aspire to and the team can focus their energy around. Clarity of roles and responsibilities is key in teams. Time and time again, I've worked in teams where the lack of clarity over roles and responsibilities has resulted in frustration and energy being taken away from your team spirit. When I joined an organisation recently, the first thing I asked for was clarity on roles and responsibilities. Who's responsible for what? Where do I fit into the team? And then I can work how best I could add value. And that comes back to that point. So the easy thing to do would not be have that conversation, but then obviously what I try to do is be open and honest. And someone said to me once, whenever there's a crisis going on, the first thing you should do is over-communicate, not under-communicate. And I think I've mentioned in previous presentations about not hiding away if you're the leader, making sure you're always communicating and you've got clear lines of communication. And ultimately, your door is open for people to communicate to you and you are listening. So individuals within teams need to have personal responsibilities. And again, in a sporting context, that'll be their own individual job or maybe their unit's job. So it might be a forwards, a props job to work in the scrum, but then his job to work in the pack, which is accepted part of making the whole team work more effectively. So it's both really, and making sure that people accept their responsibilities and therefore their accountability. And we need to set high expectations. I think I'm always a believer in setting the bar high and stretching people to achieve it rather than setting it low and then, being relatively pleased when we achieve it. So set the bar high, and ultimately, if you can get the people who work for you to set the bar, then that's even more powerful for high-performing teams. It's a competitive world out there. I've come from a teaching background, and there's a big debate about sport in schools and should there be competition. Well, unfortunately, it is competitive. It is competitive out there, and you need to have that competitive drive to win. Not to win at all costs, but the will to win in teams is critical. And again, I come back to the point about the reason why we're all going to work for this team is critical. Commitment. So, it's a non-negotiable really to the team. And anyone who doesn't buy into the team, my view would be they're on the wrong team. There's the old Jim Collins book, if you've read it, Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus and then you can drive it somewhere great. That's what high-performing organisations are made of. And you certainly need the right people on the bus with the right levels of commitment. Honesty. I think in the presentation I gave on credibility as a leader, I gave 4 characteristics. Being honest, being inspired, forward-thinking planning, and technical excellence. And honesty is the key. People might not agree with your decision, but if at least you're communicating in an honest way, then the spirit of the team should remain intact and take the hit. It's when dishonesty comes in, then you see team spirit fall apart very quickly. Openness is very much related to honesty, and certainly admitting a mistake as a leader is often an open and honest way of creating dialogue with the people that work for you and showing that you're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Unity of purpose, again, it's up to you as the leader to set that common goal. And then within that, you spend time with every individual in your team to clarify their personal goals and how that will support the team goals in its entirety. So have a think about those 18 characteristics. Have a think about using them as a way of assessing where you are as a group, and then present it back to the group and say, this is where we are and this is the areas we need to improve, A, B, C, D. And I think the people who work for you will feel very motivated and cared for the fact that you've been prepared to listen to them and act on their feedback.